Hey guys, kinggath here with another patch for Sim Settlements. This is patch 2.0.4, which I'm calling Cleanup in Aisle 7. I've decided while I adjust to fatherhood to stick to smaller projects, and have started to go through and clean up all of the buildings in Sim Settlements and Industrial Revolution. So as you see in front of me, the chemical plant now has a fully animated production line, and this applies also to the other buildings you saw with these conveyor belts, such as the ammo factories. Just refresh those plots and you'll get access to these. Now, this is done without requiring the Contraptions DLC. I wrote my own scripts to handle these things and built my own models of the conveyor belts, and all of these assets are going to be explained for use in the Builder's Toolkit, so add-on developers who want to start making use of this without having a DLC requirement will be able to. Now, one thing to note on these is that these items are intentionally not meant to be picked up. These have no reflection of how much stuff you're getting. I just wanted the animation to happen frequently enough that you'd always see it happening. So don't expect to get this many chems that rapidly. This is literally just for a visual spectacle. And these are considered animated objects in the performance options. So if you have the animated objects turned off in your performance options, you won't actually see these. If you refresh, you'll just get kind of a static equivalent of this stuff happening. Speaking of performance options, another big cleanup thing I did was I completed going through every single building in Sim Settlements and Industrial Revolution and setting up those performance options. And going forward, all new buildings I add will support them right out of the box, because I find that very important. I want to help you guys out on lower end systems, including Xbox, so that you guys can make use of the mod without having to sacrifice every frame rate there is. So let's move on to the Holotape, since we're talking about performance options. As usual, I've added more stuff to this. The first thing I've added is basically a bug that turned into a feature. So a lot of you reported that the ban system that was added in the ban hammer patch was not only applying to your settlement selection ability, but also to your own. So I decided to make that a feature. And if you turn this option on, bans applied to plan selection, it will make it so that any buildings you have banned also apply to your selection, so that you can clear them out of the menu. As many of you heard in my news video, we recently patched past 200 building plans if you have all of the add-ons installed. So I know those selection lists are going to get pretty daunting, so this will be a way for you guys to clear out some of the ones that you're never going to use anyway. So if you turn this option on, all of the bans you set up for your settlers will also apply to your own selection menu. And now the next thing I added was something that I think was sorely missing in the base game, and that is a happiness report. I don't know how many times I've been playing and had no idea why happiness wasn't going up, and so now I've built you guys a report to kind of explain it. Now, the reason I say kind of is because it's a very, very complex topic. So what I've done is giving you an overview report you can look at, and which is what you're seeing right now, which will kind of show you a direct corresponding happiness number you're gaining from each thing. So if you have, for example, your food all the way maxed out, you're going to get 20 points of happiness. Water, you'll get 20 points, etc. There's a lot more that goes into this, and if you go to the explanation section, it will break down each of these numbers and explain exactly the ranges that they can go from. For example, if you had no food, you would actually get a -50 penalty to happiness. So there's a lot to learn about happiness, and I tried to put that in a way you could learn about it here under explanation, and then in general, once you understand it, you'll be able to open up this happiness report and quickly see why the heck your happiness isn't going up. So just to cover a few things in here, like I mentioned, food and water are probably your most important things and can have dramatic effects on your happiness, as can shelter, which is just buildings being over. You just need a roof over top of your beds to count as shelter. If you ever find that your shelter number is down and you're certain that all of your beds are covered, especially if you're using a bunch of residential plots, you may need to refresh your residential plots to get the shelter to recalculate. The game does find calculation of shelter very awkward. It doesn't seem to do it completely every time. I've come into some settlements and had the shelter be at 0, I refresh and it's fine. And I know that all of the default Sim Settlements houses do work for shelter. I can't speak to the add-ons, but as long as there's a roof object, something above the bed, the game should detect that and count it as a shelter. So if you ever find that your shelter number's down and you're using residential plots, just try a refresh to fix that. A couple other things to point out on here. Robots do negatively affect your happiness because the general way happiness is done is that each settler is calculated a happiness score individually. Those are then added up and divided by your population. Now, a normal settler can have a base happiness of 80, whereas a robot can only have a base happiness of 50, so it ends up dragging down your average. So the more robots you have percentage-wise in your population, the more of a penalty they will apply to your happiness. And then recent death is because whenever one of your settlers die, essentially everyone in your city kind of mourns them, and over time this number will decrease, but it starts out as a 20-point happiness negative. And then amusement is going to be, I'm actually probably going to change the name of that now that I'm seeing that to just bonus, because it could be in the negative, and this will tell you a flat converted number. So if you've worked with the advanced industrial buildings, you'll know that some of them have happiness penalties or happiness bonuses, and they'll be quite large. They'll often say something like plus 50 happiness, and that's a little bit misleading. What that means is it's plus 50 happiness, but that's divided by the number of settlers you have, and that is designed that way by Bethesda so that the more settlers you have, the more bars you need, for example. So this report converts that number into a flat rate that it affects your happiness. So right now, the happiness objects I have in the settlement give me plus 10 flat happiness. If I were to recruit, say, 5 more settlers, this number would go down, and that is by design. And now if you add all these numbers up, so if we add food, water, beds, shelter, defense, and the amusement, we'd have 90, and you'll see that predicted happiness tomorrow is 89. And if I were to exit out of here and show you my current happiness, it's only 88. And the reason that is that happiness doesn't change overnight. It's not instantaneous, rather. So the happiness will slowly trend up or down depending on your score in this menu. And so this uses all this information to calculate what your happiness will most likely be when it next updates. So based on the current stats that I have here, it'll go to 89. And then most likely, if nothing changed, the day after that, it would go up to 90, because on average, happiness will only change 1 to 2 points per day. Unless you have a massive bonus, then it might go up a little bit more. But for the most part, it's designed to only go up a point or two per day, or down a point or two per day. So keep that in mind with this report. I highly recommend you all read through these explanation slides if you want to use this report, and then just glancing at these numbers will make it clear in the future how things are functioning. And then a lot of you are probably going to immediately ask me, hey, can you just put current happiness on this screen? And unfortunately I can't, because there is a limit of 9 numbers I can send to an individual message box at once, which is very unfortunate. But I felt like current happiness was the easiest one to sacrifice, because you can easily see that in your workshop mode anyway. And the predicted happiness is always going to be only 1 or 2 points off from your current happiness anyway. All right, and then the last thing I'll mention in this patch that I think a lot of you guys are going to be very happy about is I finally stopped neglecting provisioners. They are now considered regular citizens. They can own homes, so you can give them residential plots. They will be counted as having jobs in ASAM Vision. And if you have turned on that setting I added last patch for all work counts as jobs, the provisioners will affect your job meter. Okay, guys, check out the patch notes as usual. There were a lot of changes, and I think for the next patch or two, this probably what I'm going to do is focus on smaller things while I kind of adjust to my new lifestyle with a baby, and hopefully get back to some big giant features after that once I've kind of stabilized things. All right, guys, take care and enjoy the mod.